In this episode, we're discussing 8 signs or ways to know if you're a good friend. By the way, you can also use these 8 to determine if someone else in your life is a good friend too. Stay tuned, because here we go. Welcome back to another Accidentally Intentional podcast episode where we're on a mission to destroy loneliness by building rich friendships in our life. And so today we're talking about 8 ways and signs that you can test yourself with to know if you in fact are considered a good friend. Now, before I get into any of these ways, there is another way and a quick way that you can figure out if you're a good friend. Are you ready for it? Asking your friends if they think you're a good friend. Now, before you click off of this, I understand maybe you're apprehensive to do that because you are scared of what they say. So, good news is there's a test that we can go through with these 8 ways that you can self-reflect upon to figure out if you are in that camp. The reason that I actually want to focus on self-reflection is because at the end of the day, to expect someone else to be a great friend without being one yourself is a futile effort, because ultimately we want to first become the friend that we want in our lives. And so as I'm going through this list of 8 things, it's good for us to actually, instead of thinking about, this person isn't this person isn't that, think, am I this? Am I that? What do I need to do if I'm not that? Where do I need to work? Because as I'm going to be going through these 8 things, we're going to talk about what to do if you aren't, and steps you can take to first embody and become a good friend. So in no particular order, the first sign to know if you're a good friend or not is self-awareness. Now, yes, this has to do with self-reflection, but self-awareness to know, where am I actually showing up correctly for other people? Where am I doing too much? Where am I not doing enough? And there's probably a lot of thoughts that could be circling in your mind right now, such as, well, I always am thinking, am I doing too much? Are people annoyed with me? Now, that is a paranoia, and that could easily be squashed by just communicating with other people about how you're feeling and letting them tell you the truth. That way you don't have to create stories in your head about what other people are experiencing with you, but you can find out directly by asking them. So self-awareness is important to be able to grade yourself. And self-aware people are able to also empathize with others better, quite frankly, because they're able to know, oh, I've experienced something like this before. Oh man, knowing myself, I can imagine how that feels or how that is a certain situation or circumstance for other people. So I would say that self-awareness is key. And if you listen to the podcast regularly, we had a guest recently, Ken Coleman. He's America's career coach, who is saying that he's on a self-awareness tour where he is teaching people how to figure out the perfect career route for them. So self-awareness is not only a buzzword nowadays, but a really important word, because if you're self-aware, you also are someone that truly wants to grow and are open with and vulnerable with where you're struggling. And that comes into play later on in one of the other signs. So that's the first sign, self-awareness. Second sign that you're a good friend is that you're willing to be selfless. For instance, that means someone calls you and they say, hey, I know this is last minute. This is going on in my life. Are you able to help? Now, you might have heard that and you're thinking, I wish someone would call and ask for my help. We seem to have a problem with this in society today. We seem to just assume that everyone's too busy to care about or help us, when there's actually been studies done that the societies that have experienced the best quality of life are societies in where everyone is openly asking each other for help. And there's a camaraderie and there's a unity of people actually doing life together, not isolated, not insular. Like, that's so easy to do, especially in America, but actually doing life with others, being there, being in each other's corner through thick and thin. So when I say being willing to be selfless, that means that you're putting others above yourself oftentimes. Now, what I'm not saying is be a doormat, but knowing that there will be sacrifices in any friendship that you have. A sacrifice of time, a sacrifice of maybe money, a sacrifice of your emotions. There's so many sacrifices that we could list when it comes to friendships, but just having that willingness to make sacrifices is, in my opinion, the mark of a good friend. The third sign that you're a good friend is if you are someone that is willing to go first. Go first in making plans. Go first in picking up the phone to check in on other people and not expect someone else to do it for you. Now, I heard this sentence the other day and it really struck me. They were talking about vulnerability, actually, and they said that when you're vulnerable, you're giving others the gift to go second. But I actually like to apply the same concept for going first when it comes to your friendships and making plans at large, because when you go first, you are giving others the gift to go second. And you might be hearing that saying, but I always go first. And honestly, I just want somebody else to, for once, do it for me, do it to me instead. Like, why can't anyone ever ask me? Well, truthfully, because all of us love comfort. That's really what it comes down to. And I'll tell you that if you feel that way and you're like, I'm always going first, you're not alone. I would actually say that's a lead indicator that you're doing something right. Because still today, in my friendships, I go first when it comes to making plans specifically 90% of the time. Does that mean nobody likes me? No. That just means I'm making it a priority and extending it to other people. Now, does it become reciprocated the more it happens and the more a friendship grows? Absolutely. In fact, I heard this definition of friendship the other day, which actually says the construct of friendship rests on this idea of reciprocity, meaning give and take. And then there's a lot of, like toxic friendships out there where it's like, I'm always giving, I'm never receiving. That's another episode for another day. But a balanced friendship is one where you give and take. Give, said another way, and receive. But going first means that you're leading, and it's okay to lead in that. There's no issue with that. If you're willing to do it and believe that the person that you want to spend time with, if they accept they want to spend time with you, then you're good. And that's a conversation you can have down the road of, hey, I would love, if you can make plans next time. I'm kind of feeling paranoid. Is this true? Do you like it? Just be honest with people. I had a conversation recently where a friend said, I feel like I am bugging you because I'm always asking you to hang out, but you haven't been doing that much lately. And we had an honest conversation about it. And I was honestly grateful that she had called it out and we got to talk about it. Because if she hadn't, I wouldn't have known how she thought. And guess what I did as a result of that? I started making it a priority to equally reach out to her when I wanted to hang out. So those are the first couple things. So self-awareness, being selfless, and going first. The fourth one is willing to be inconvenienced, to show commitment to the friendship. Friendship isn't convenient. And that's probably why we're having such a crisis of loneliness in our country, is because it is so inconvenient. And when we can do everything from an app on our phone, what a temptation it would be to do the same with relationships and friendships in our life. But great friends are ones that are willing to be inconvenienced. And I'm talking inconvenienced by traffic. Can I just be honest with you? I had a friend that recently moved on the other side of the city. And we haven't hung out as much. Whose fault is that? That's my fault. That's my fault because I let my discomfort with wanting to sit in traffic to spend time with somebody overtake my actual desire to be a friend that shows up and spend time with that person. So I'm guilty of this. And that's why I'm grading myself on F- for good friend in that department lately. And I'm making active changes right now to not let that stop me anymore and not create excuses to prevent that from happening. And I know there's all these memes out there that are like, extroverted me when I made plans, introverted me, hit the mic, introverted me when, the day actually comes and it's this person with like a hoodie over their head and a blanket up. I understand that. Being willing to be inconvenienced too, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes looks like just mustering up the strength, the endurance, the courage you have to go out and be someone that sticks to the plans. Become a man or woman of your word, letting your yes be yes and your no be no. So those are the first 4 things. You might be watching this video or listening to this episode thinking to yourself, man, I really like where we're going with this, but ultimately I don't really know where to even start when it comes to building rich friendships or getting out of my rut of loneliness. And if that's you, I got you. Because now we have a free downloadable guide, which is the 5 steps you need to build rich friendships. It's the springboard that launches you into every other facet of your life in your own mission to destroy your loneliness. It's the exact steps that I, along with now hundreds of others, have used to destroy their loneliness and build the friendships that they've always dreamed of and always wanted. And now it could be your turn too. So make sure you check out the link in the description or the show notes to download that guide for free right now. 5 steps to build rich friendships. Hey, by the way, I think you're worth it. Back to the show. Next one, a good sign or a sign that you're a good friend is willingness to learn if you can trust someone while being honest yourself. Now, I get it. Most of us have probably been hurt or burned by one, if not multiple people in our life, no matter how old you are. And when you're hurt by someone, you want to stop the pain that you're in, which oftentimes can mean slipping into this mindset of thinking and believing that you don't need any more people in your life. You don't need any friends. You don't want any. But that mindset isn't one that's going to lead to flourishing for you, straight up. It's actually unhealthy, not just emotionally. It's unhealthy in a physical way. They've now determined and been able to prove through studies that loneliness on your physical body is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So the marker of a good friend is learning if you can trust someone while being honest yourself. And it has to do with this idea of being willing to risk and being willing to be vulnerable in stages. You don't need to sit down with somebody for the first time and tell them your whole life story. In fact, I would actually say that's dangerous on the opposite side of the spectrum. But sharing a little bit about yourself and hopefully in return, them sharing a little bit about themselves and growing and building upon that trust, because true friendship is one where you deeply know each other and you're honest with each other. Otherwise, that's not friendship. That's just, I know this person. They know about me. We keep it a safe distance to protect ourselves, because people out here are trying to hurt me, or you can't trust anybody. That's not true. You couldn't trust one person. You couldn't trust a group of people. But that doesn't mean as a whole that humans cannot be trusted. You know why I know that to be true? Because we all know that there are distrusting or humans that aren't trustworthy. Wow, if we're complaining about that, that means we want to be a trustworthy human. That's the subconscious idea we're giving, is we want to be as trustworthy of a person as we hope to find. So if you are willing to learn to trust someone while being honest yourself and never telling lies in that, that's a marker of a good friend. Another one, and this is a big one. A sign of a good friend is someone that is willing to believe the best of intentions and not assume the worst based upon how others, unrelated, have treated you in the past. I understand this is a hard one to swallow because I've been hurt by people, and it's very easy to take the hurt that I've experienced from other people and put that on somebody else, and also put a coat of armor on myself and say, well, if you're a living, breathing human, you're probably just like this person that hurt me, when we know that's not true. But instead, if we have the courage to actually believe the best of intentions and ask questions and be curious when we're not sure about it, oh my gosh, there's so much potential for growth and a beautifully rich friendship that can come on the other side of that. Because assuming the worst of intentions, let me tell you from personal experience, destroys every type of relationship and friendship possible. If you truly believe that somebody is out to get you and somebody wants to hurt you, then you can consider whatever level of relationship or friendship that is effectively dead. Because there is nothing that person can do or say to you to prove otherwise if you've already made up your mind that that's what you're going to believe. So being willing to believe the best of intentions and not assume the worst because other people prior to them have treated you as such. The next one is, are you ready for this one? This one is difficult. Practicing forgiveness, being willing to forgive. Now I know a lot of this stems from people who are like, nope, sorry, this is where I draw the line because I've been hurt before. People don't deserve to be forgiven. People don't deserve to be forgiven. Well, here's the thing. Okay, this is what I'm going to say. And this is a lesson I've been learning myself. I'm telling you what I just had an epiphany on recently. I didn't think I was going to say it, but here's the truth. If you choose to not forgive someone, you are practicing self-harm. Because holding on to resentment is eating you alive. And it's eating other relationships in your life alive. Because you're holding something over somebody's head, whether it's deserved or not. Forgiveness frees you. And the greatest friendships are ones where they know they're going to make mistakes. The other person's going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. And I desperately want to show forgiveness to the level that I want from somebody else. If you're someone that faith is important to you, then you understand the importance of forgiveness from that perspective. But even if not, forgiveness is imperative in great relationships because everybody is unintentionally or intentionally, doesn't matter, going to get hurt by somebody else. But holding on to resentment doesn't actually protect you. It makes you more vulnerable and susceptible to these crazy thoughts and stories that you write about others, and makes you always feel like you're under attack when really it all started with one small act, probably choosing to not forgive somebody. It's like a weed that just grows. And so I want to challenge all of us to actually right now think of somebody that you're having trouble forgiving and write it down. And start thinking about them in a different light. I don't know, this is a hard challenge, right? But what if we wrote down the name of somebody that we're having trouble forgiving and say, I forgive, insert their name. I forgive them and I release them from the pain that they caused me. Because at this point, I get to choose whether I stay hurt or not, and I choose to not be hurt anymore. I choose to forgive them, which doesn't mean forget, but forgive means releasing that burden from yourself and from them so that possible restoration and reconciliation can happen. Now, I'm not saying that in all cases, reconciliation or restoration should happen. Depending on the severity of this, there could absolutely be healthy boundaries that need to be established. But at the end of the day, even if this person isn't going to be in your life anymore, you can choose. You have the power and autonomy and ultimately freedom to forgive somebody and be released of the pain that they caused you. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that that's actually in our power and control, that we get to decide us. Maybe somebody took something from you, but you can take your power back by choosing forgiveness. And the final sign to know if you're a good friend is if you are a good listener. Now, I think probably the majority of us would say, I'm a great listener. Because most of us think we actually are great listeners. But if you have the courage to ask somebody else in your life if they think you're a great listener, then I believe that you will find out the real truth. A great listener is somebody, I'm guilty of this, okay? Somebody that doesn't interrupt when somebody else is talking. Somebody that doesn't need to keep asking questions while interrupting. Somebody that hears something and doesn't make it about themselves, but just literally sits in the moment. And great listeners are sometimes people who don't even have to respond. You don't even have to say anything. Sometimes being a great listener is just sitting with somebody and hearing them, vent, talk about life. It's always a good practice, I have learned over the past couple years, of when someone's about to have a conversation with you, or they start a conversation and you're actually not sure which way it could go, pausing and saying, hey, can I ask a quick question before we get into this? Are you looking for someone to just listen or someone to give advice? Whoa, is this a life hack of a question, okay? Because if you're about to start hearing somebody talk about everything and you're like, you start listening, you're like, good, yes, oh, I got it. Oh, I have just the right solution for them. And you're ready to say it, only to find out they don't want your advice. Yikes, you have yourself in a pickle. So why not ask that question up front? Are you looking for someone just to listen or someone to give advice? Because that actually puts the onus on the other person to share responsibly based upon the question you asked and say what they're going to say next. They get to choose what direction they're going to go, and there's actually an arc and a goal with whatever they're about to share next. So I would say being a good listener, and there'll be separate episodes in its entirety on how to be a good listener, but I would say that someone who is a good listener and is validated by their friends that they're a good listener, that is the mark of a great friend. And bonus on this, I actually did this recently because I said, guilty. I'm not always a great listener. I asked a friend recently, I said, hey, I know I'm not a great listener. What in your mind, and this person is a great listener, by the way, what in your mind are some things that I can implement and practice to become a better listener? Now, there's a couple things that happened when I said that. One, I was vulnerable. I put myself in a place of I want to learn and grow, and I also called attention to something that this person definitely already knew. So if somebody comes to you saying something like this, it's like, oh, thank God I don't have to tell them, because they have the self-awareness to know themselves. But also, by asking this person for advice, she genuinely wanted to help me because she wants me as a friend in her life to be a good listener. And because she's already a great listener, what a gift that she gets to help me learn how I can grow in that because as a result, the byproduct of that is I become a great listener in her life. So those are a ton of ways, 8 different signs to know if you're a good friend and ways to fix it and what you can do if you aren't quite there yet and haven't quite checked the boxes. But let's be honest, right? It's a evolving thing all the time. You're never going to get 100% for your whole life on being a good friend. It's something you have to continuously work on and practice. And it's something that, quite honestly, I believe you're worth practicing, fighting for, building, is finding these rich friendships in your life. And if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, now I want to be a good friend, I haven't gotten all the way there yet, I actually have a free downloadable resource to come alongside you and supplement this journey and this quest that you're on. And it's 5 steps to build rich friendships in your life. It's free, of course. You can download it by using the link in the description. And it's just there for you because I want to do this with you guys. We are all on this journey to destroy loneliness and build rich friendships. And we're so much better together. I know that because loneliness is killing us physically and emotionally. But knowing that we have the power to change and do something different and make certain choices and implement certain actions in our life to turn this around and become the kind of friend that we've always wanted to in turn receive and build the friendships with others that we've always wanted. So that's it for this one. Go out there and let's build some rich friendships together. We'll see you in the next episode.